we'll get started. Hello everyone, thanks for coming. Oh, there's a crazy echo up here. My name is Leah Engstman, and I am with Alternating Current Press and Promotions, and I have set up a 30-plus stop book tour for your headliner tonight, Eric Schulyer. And in each of our stops, we have asked local authors to come out and join him. So we've got a fantastic show for you tonight of 3 authors. Your first one will be Schulyer Benson. Schulyer Benson's fiction and poetry have appeared in Kudzu Review, Hobart, The Idle Class, and elsewhere, and he has been nominated for 3 Pushcart Prizes. He completed his undergraduate studies at University of Arkansas and is currently enrolled in the MA program at Coastal Carolina University. The Poor Man's Guide to an Affordable Painless Suicide is his first book. We have it over here, and he will be signing at the end for you as well. So, Schulyer Benson.
Thank you guys. Thanks to, there is an echo up here, that's wild. Thanks to Old Books for having us, and big thanks to Taylor and Eric and Leah for letting me come along and do this. We read together last night as well, or Eric and I did, and it was a great show, so excited to be here. Like Leah said, my first book is a collection of short fiction. It's called Poor Man's Guide to an Affordable Painless Suicide. It came out back in July. And I'm going to read you guys just a couple of excerpts from stuff from the book. The first thing I want to read is from the title story, which is a story about a young man who is trying to stay human in a very dehumanizing profession while looking for some resolution in a strained relationship that he has with a man named Mason, who is his estranged stepfather. Dean flips off that switch of himself as the mom pulls her dead infant from its casket in the middle of a bridge over troubled water. I grasp at the version of that switch in myself, alack, it is not yet absence. Manning my place in the back right corner of the funeral home's tent, I'm cut in half by sunlight, standing next to the speakers I usually have on my office desk. We of the death business are the standard bearers of gallows humor in this life, and Dean joked earlier about me taking a break from being a Peckerwood to MC this party as DJ Peckerwood. We never laughed, but recollected. This mother coddles a limp baby boy, her hands hooked into claws squeezed so tight around the corpse that I reckon something's bound to pop. For the first time in months, I feel my gut twist and prep to retch, and I turn my face away. Methodists and attendants restrain the mom, and Mr. Pierce from the funeral home pulls the baby from her. He places it back in its casket, tucking it in as if he were folding clothes and shutting the lid like he'd closed the cover of a wake registry. I make myself small beneath the bedlam and creep away, cemetery mud like shit icing around the edges of my loafers to where Dean stands by the backhoe. "Why you green, nigga?" he says, lighting a cigarette. "You ain't never seen a baby doll?" The mom is among the last to leave when the service ends, carried wounded soldier style to a waiting limousine, limp as Christ hung between 2 human crutches. The car stutters off, and I ease into my walk back to the office across the street through New November. Behind me, I hear Dean firing up the backhoe to plow through the same slop that clutches at my heels. The mud here is loath to let anything go. It sucks against my soles and sounds like Peter used to, when he'd squirt a stream of snotty spit from the gap between his front teeth before time and braces drew it shut, then slurp it back up just before it touched grass, snapping back like a bad tendon and slathering his mouth with sheen. I reach the office, go inside. On my desk, Angie's left a memo that reads, "Mausoleum smell." I have no fresh ideas, and I cannot process the problem with the scent of the place. We fill it and fill it with dead folks, and it just keeps smelling like pine oil. People complain about anything. Sitting down behind my desk, I fold Angie's note into tinier and tinier squares as I look at my wall calendar. I've never had a job with vacation time before this one, and as of next week, I'll have 3 days to go upstate to a nursing home and watch Mason while he lies in bed on a vent. I'll bring pictures of the women, pictures of Mom and Peter, and I'll post them up around his bed to remind him of them, and us, and me, and why I keep him there, and keep him alive. And I'll smuggle in his favorite foods in Ziplocs and little Gladware containers and eat them at his bedside. I'll wipe my hands and mouth on his sheets. I'll know, he'll know, I'm there. Mason's been in a vegetative state since a single car accident 11 months ago. Insurance is incredible. Take a dead man and keep him alive. But Mason had no people. No one but me. After nearly a year in a bed, dreaming awake, a brain wired to waste and stranded in life, Mason's insurance will no longer cover his convalescence. I'm taking vacation to watch him die. Alright. It's a happy one, right? The next little bit is from another story in the book called Grace. In it we have two characters, the narrator, who is a younger man, and another man named Marlon, who is this old one-legged drunk. And in the conversation that takes place that I'm going to read from, we're led to believe that their relationship has a confessional nature to it anyway, but things take on a more strange turn this particular night. When was you born now, Marlon Chuft? 81, I said, grunting as I ground my chair over gravel to avoid drifting smoke.
Well, this would be before you was old enough to remember. There was this fella, everybody called him Two-Cuff Tim. Big son bitch. Some bitch so fat every time he'd end up handcuffed, which was often. Then boys have to use 2 sets of cuffs to get his hands around to his back. Anyhow, one night, this was fall now, 87, Two-Cuff got it in his head I've been fooling around behind his back with his old lady Marcy. So this sumbitch, drunker than Cooter Brown, come to my mama's house where I was living, goes to hollering at me from the porch. I didn't even know it was about old Marcy till later. As soon as I come through the screen door, this sumbitch laid straight into me. So I get up, and I was fast back in. I get up, and I get to putting my hands in his life, you know, commenced to ass whipping him. We was rolling around that porch like a couple of damn possums in a pillowcase breaking shit. Rolled through the side screen into the yard. Mama had this statue of a Caddo Indian she got God knows where, but at some point she put a pitchfork in his hand. I started to speak. No, never made no damn sense to me neither, he said. I shut up again. Anyhow, we come down on the grass, and Two-Cuff's the first one up. This sumbitch grabbed that pitchfork from the Caddo Indian and run me through my goddamn leg with it about 1 inch above the knee. Jesus, I breathed. Hurt like a sumbitch, even drunk as I was. Sight of steady blood might have brought him around, I don't know, but after that he took off and left me bleeding. I went inside, wrapped an old t-shirt around it, drunk all the tough willy I had in the house. Come to on the couch the next afternoon. We'd done soaked through the shirt, still losing a good bit. Mom had got back from the boats, tried to load me up and take me to the dock, but I was acting ignorant. Kept it wrapped up another 3 days in the same goddamn t-shirt while I was laid up drinking. Finally gave in to Mama when it started to stink. Went to the hospital, and they said it got bad infected. Kept me 2 days, but it was too late, so they took that goddamn thing off. Marlon stopped talking. We sat in troubled silence. Is that true? I said. Gospel. Man. I scooted my chair again, evading more smoke. Marlon and I were nearly across from one another. Well, I tell you that, to tell you about this, he continued, lighting another cigarette. About 3 months after I got my leg took, I was up and around on a crutch, still drinking now, and I heard that the blue lady, old Two-Cuff and Marcy, was having a case officer come by to size them up as parents since their kid had come to a school with a bruise or two. Later that night I headed over Two-Cuff's way. Parked on the street behind his place, hobbled my ass through 2 yards to get to his. Went in through the back gate, they had this black lab by the name of Hatfield. Now, he knew me by then, so when I come in, he come up acting hard, till he caught my scent, then he backed down. Scratched on his ears for a minute like he liked, and then I pulled out the box cutter I kept in my back pocket, and I drew him up from his boy parts to his collar. Didn't even whimper. I flipped him so his guts wouldn't all spill in the back, grabbed his hind legs with one hand and my crutch with the other, dragged his ass around to the front porch. Caseworker come by next morning at 8 before Two-Cuff or Marcy even done come outside for the paper. Found old Hatfield, and that was that. He took that little girl. Jesus, Marlon. I never told nobody that. Jesus, I said. I swayed my head. Wait, how did the dog know you? Because I always brought him deer jerky when I was coming by to fuck Marcy. It's okay. Sometimes we laugh and we don't know why. Alright, I'm going to finish up. I got one little piece left. And then Taylor's going to come up. It's going to be great. This one's called Stroke Test. Betty said, I'd fuck your friends if you had any.
I bought this little ceramic blackface jockey at a flea market we'd gone to the December prior. He had a writing prop I'd hang my keys from. She picked him up off the end table next to the door and slammed him down onto the tile floor, swinging down like she was dropping a bandana igniting a drag race. She said, "I'd fuck your dad if you knew who he was." And she slammed the door and left. I go where I went to get her so mad. When I was a kid, I was at this cookout at my friend's house. His aunt had a stroke. Right there in the backyard, she'd been having a fit about Deke's dad burning the burgers, and then she went down like a sinker. Like a week later, his mom gave us these little cartoon pamphlets about how to tell if somebody was stroking out. You have the person, 1, say 3 simple sentences. 2, raise both hands in the air. 3, smile. They closed the bowling alley down like 8 years ago, but Kathy's trailer is still parked across the street. In the old parking lot is a van with the back lift gate up, kids everywhere, 3 pink plastic laundry hampers spread out on the wrecked asphalt. A cardboard sign leaning against the back tire says, "Red Pit Puppies, free to good home," in red Sharpie. And shitty pop radio pours through rolled down windows, all scratchy mids from busted speakers. I swing by Kathy's because I see her son's Monte Carlo out front. He gets 80s from his aunt on his dad's side, a 60-something albino with sickle cell. She doesn't take him for the pain. Just give him to Kathy's son. $80, and 160 mils later, I glide back to my car, and Kathy follows me out and around to my passenger side. It's in the stand of shitty pine trees between Kathy's street and the bowling alley parking lot. Betty broke my little blackface key jockey, slammed my door, threatened to fuck my dad, and I think Betty thinks that's going to change this. Kathy pops out her uppers and hooks them on the back pocket of my jeans as she grabs my ass and drops to her knees on the ratty beige grass. Heart in motion bounces from the van's speakers, and I smell burning leaves or something coming in on August breeze, like standing inside a hairdryer. The sun is shining, I say. Kathy bobs, hums along to the song. She calls me Ramon because I tell her to. She doesn't remember my real name, even though she used to serve me lunch when I was in grade school. The sky is blue, I say. I cannot help myself. I am alive, I say. I raise both hands high and smile. Thank you guys so much.
Right, our next reader is Taylor Brown, who was born and raised on the Georgia coast. His work has appeared or is forthcoming in more than 20 publications, including Chautauqua, the Baltimore Review, Cutbank, Story South, and the New Guard. He has been the recipient of the Montana Prize in Fiction, as well as a finalist for the Press 53 Open Awards, the Machagoni Fiction Contest, the Doris Betts Fiction Prize, and the Wabash Prize in Fiction. His short story collection, In the Season of Blood and Gold, was published by Press 53 in May 2014. We have it available over here, and he will be signing as well afterwards. Taylor Brown.
First, I want to thank all you guys for coming. Thank Leah for setting this up, and thank Schulyer and Eric both for allowing me to share the stage with them. Read both of these guys' books. Was really, really impressed by both of them. So definitely something to look into for you guys. Normally when I read from the title story of this collection, In the Season of Blood and Gold. But Blair and James have already heard that story, so I don't want to make them hear it again. So I'm going to read from a story called Kingdom Come. It's the second story in the collection. Ever since I was a kid, I've been interested in moonshining and bootlegging and everything, to my mother's chagrin. And this is the first story that I did with that as a backdrop. I actually moved to North Carolina, to Asheville in 2009, partly because I wanted to work on a novel that was set in that area and against, this kind of setting. And that's a novel that I subsequently wrote and I'm still working on revising and stuff like that. But this story was the seed for that novel. And in the story, we have a boy who goes unnamed. Well, I say boy, he's a teenager. He's got, he and his father make moonshine, and he has a stepsister who marries into this family of notorious bootleggers, the McAvoy clan. And they're pretty hard dudes. And when she has her first baby, it comes out and it has this tuft of red hair. And it's like a siren going off because nobody in the McAvoy clan has red hair. But this boy in the story does, and everyone knows that maybe something was going on back behind the shed or behind the spring house or something. And so he's forced to take some violent action to deal with that, to protect not just himself but the baby and everything. And I'm going to pick it up from the beginning, but some of that's already happened, as you'll see, and things kind of go to shit as they do. Kingdom Come. The boy dropped the knife into the stone mouth of the well and watched the blade glitter into the depths, blood from its edge red clouding its wake, haunting the blade-like tidings of its history. In seconds the implement disappeared in a profound and lightless depth. Who knew how long it would fall through such darkness, fluttering end over end? The boy watched and waited. He thought at the bottommost point he might sense the plunge of the blade into lifeless silt, into companionship with sundry other items of such provenance, pistols and pruning shears, medallions of broken promise, skulls newly crowned and arrested newborn, their sockets forever agape with wonder. Among such wreckage his blade would have a home, and some affinity, however grotesque and sid-ridden, might strike home the notion that he was not alone in the world, not the only one cast out by work of his own hands. He felt no bottom, no plunge. After a time he pulled himself from the mortared stone rim and looked at the cold brown fields and heaps of snow, the naked trees. When he walked away, the earth beneath him seemed a hollow place, where his blade danced ever deeper toward the heart of something black and whole and without end. His boots crunched on the frosted mud road. It wound over a rise to the west, and toward this he tread, his black slouch hat haloing his head in shadow, the sun rising pale and heatless at his back. He had no pistol, no car, no kin to hide him, none who would. He had only her, his stepsister, no blood between them but what they'd made, and whether she would love him or hate him for what he'd done, he didn't know. Her husband's face had looked so surprised at his end, his blood so bright against the snow. At the crest of the rise, he pulled his coat tighter around his fatless body and looked down a long slope to the next village west. Little houses sat white-roofed with snow. Spires of chimney smoke hung undizzied in their rise from the valley floor. Straight as prayers recited at some hearth of warmth and shadow, of warmth and peace. Everything storybook from such height. He was about to move toward that place when something stopped him. A sound, a rumble out of the east, the way he'd come. He moved quickly off the road and into the trees, grabbing the first broken branch he could to swipe over his tracks. He retreated deeper and deeper into the wood, there being sparse underbrush to hide him. The sound rose rumbling along the road. It was a V8, one in particular. No other motor in the county made a sound like that. He hid himself best he could behind a slim tree, slim as him, and watched. The car crested the rise and rolled to a stop at the place where he just stood. It was a McAvoy car, a 40 Ford in black. The rear end stood much higher than the front, unsprung, no load of shine to set it level. The idle of the engine sounded grumpy, mean, not used to so little throttle. A McAvoy elder stepped out of the passenger seat and walked to the front of the car, a shotgun cradled in the crook of his arm, a ragged hole in the elbow of his coat. The old bootlegger crouched and examined the road, his hair white beneath his black stovetop hat. He touched the road with 2 fingers, and the boy held his breath to slip nothing from behind his tree. Then the man looked up, right in his direction. So the way the story works is we kind of go back in time from then on, and we see the relationship that he had with the stepsister of his, and how everything went down. And we don't really have time for me to read all that, so I'm going to skip ahead toward the end and follow up with what happens to him as he's hiding here in the woods. The boy turned edgewise the tree to slim his silhouette from the McAvoys on the road. The black bark of the trunk exploded, yellow-hearted from the blast, and the boy took off running, his hat snagging on a low branch, his progress a crackling of dead limbs, his red hair wild among the black and white wood. Other shots carromed through the trees, each report or leaf that slug had not struck him. He splashed through a creek clear as moonshine, and the water cut right through his loose-laced boots, cold beyond all his reckonings. and it was that ice courier clarity more than the shots that told him he would not get cleanly away. A slug erupted in his hamstring, and he fell turning and twisting, red slush down a long slope toward a broken jaw of black rock, upthrust on the verge of a high ridge. He twisted and turned, flailing, trying to stop his fall, and the dirt and stone and root of the land were too slippery and frost-hardened to help him. He struck the black-toothed crags and felt things crack inside him, like all those dead and broken limbs through which he plummeted. He opened his eyes and saw his fall red-inked upon the slope above him, and then the stove hats and moon faces of McAvoys appeared on the ridgeline. He turned from them through jets of pain and saw below him on the valley floor that picture-perfect village, the whispers of smoke still unharried by wind or mania, the roof so white on the neat outlay of shoveled streets. Kingdom come, maybe, but come not for him. He turned and saw the line of them still assembling, his family, their hats steepled blackly against the pale sky, their barrels pointing him down like a man being judged. She and the baby would be safe now, satisfaction given. She could say he'd forced her. She could say anything. He turned and pulled himself over the rock edge, turning end over end into the storybook kingdom, his head fire-colored against the slate face of his fall.